Hi, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Smoke. Today, I'm going to take this pork shoulder roast and cut it down into steaks. So 2 weeks ago, we were actually making carnitas, and so I purchased a pork shoulder roast for that purpose. And because we weren't going to use the entire roast for carnitas, I ended up cutting, I don't know, maybe about 3 or 4 steaks out of it. I've never had pork steaks before, I've never tried making them, but I've heard a lot about them through various YouTube channels. A lot of barbecue joints are popular for their pork steaks, so I decided to give it a try. Honestly, it was amazing. I'm pretty critical of my cooking. I always try to, look for ways to improve. And I got to tell you, when I made those steaks, I couldn't think of anything I could have done better. So decided to go to the store, buy another pork steak. It was actually on sale for 95 cents a pound. This is a 8-pound shoulder roast. So I'm gonna see how many steaks I can get out of it. And I'm gonna then vacuum seal it and freeze it. So whenever I need a pork steak, I have them available in my freezer. Now, I've never cut meat before with a bone. So I actually had to run out and purchase this 16-inch meat saw, which I've never used, so hopefully I can make this happen and still have all my fingers left. I want to shoot for about 1.25 to 1.5 inch steaks. You want to cut across the grain, and so if you look here, you can see that the grain is kind of going this way, and so that means I'm actually going to want to cut my steaks like this. All right. Now, if you're new like I am to trying to cut steaks, you can use a little culinary ruler like this and try to measure it out, which I might try. Some people say, about 2 fingers lengths. For me, that's closer to 1.5, and I want to try to get it closer to 1.25. So let's get started. All right, so as you can see, the grain is running along this way, which means I want to cut these steaks going across like this. So let me just turn this around. I do have an assortment of weapons to choose from here. I'm not really sure how this is going to work. My plan is to use a regular knife to kind of cut through the meat until I hit the bone, and then I'll switch over to the meat saw and cut through the bone, which I've never done before. I did read that the cutting motion of the saw, it's actually cutting as you move it forward, and then you relieve pressure, pull back, apply pressure, cut forward, and that's kind of how the saw works. All right, so I'm gonna start with my basic fillet knife here. Now, as far as the measurements go, like I said, you could try to use 2 fingers. You could use a tool like this and try to, measure them out, which I might go ahead if I can see so that's about 1.25 right there, and then 2.5. This just kind of gives me a little bit of guidance. And then 3 3/4 right here. And then 6. All right, so I'm going to use those lines as a guide. I know some of you may be laughing and thinking, why doesn't he just cut it? But I'm going to try to make this as precise as possible so that I can have even cooks. There may be an occasion where I'm just cooking 1 pork steak, and there may be an occasion where I'm going to cook 3 or 4 pork steaks, and I'd like for them to cook as evenly as possible, and the only way to do that is to have evenly cut steaks. So let's take our fillet knife, and again, just kind of cutting where there's not any bone. And the bone is hitting right there. So if you are a meat butcher, please drop me a comment. Let me know what are some tips to properly cut these steaks. I actually tried looking on YouTube before I made this video, and honestly couldn't really find much. A lot of people were just cutting the portions of the meat that didn't have bone and making those in the steaks. I didn't really find too many videos doing exactly what I'm trying to do. And so if you have any suggestions on how to really get nice, straight, and even cuts, please drop me a comment and let me know down below. All right. Not perfectly straight, but I think it'll be okay. And you notice I'm not really doing any trimming or anything of the fat. When I made the steaks a couple weeks ago, I really didn't trim much fat at all. And honestly, after eating it, there's so much intermuscular fat that I probably would have been better suited to go ahead and trim this fat cap off. And so I thought about doing that today, but instead of trimming the entire fat cap off today, I decided to go ahead and keep it on. And then as I pull steaks out of the freezer, if I decide for that particular scenario where I want less fat or need more fat, then I can trim each steak individually. All right, so these are pretty much cut what I could as far as using the regular knife. So now we will get the bone saw out and see how this goes. Let me try to straighten this up a little bit. All right, try to get a good grip. And it is very slippery. I'm going to try to separate this meat so that I'm not butchering the meat as I cut. This is very slippery though. This is a little bit more challenging than I thought because this is sliding all around. So let me see if I put some paper towel or something to maybe keep this from sliding around so much. I know that there's probably some butchers that are watching this video and cringing right now as I'm trying my best to cut this bone without butchering the meat as well. Let me see if I try it like this. It's so slippery. I was gonna wear gloves, but I thought, well, that might be even more slippery. So probably if I had some knitted gloves. Let me try placing some napkins on top and see if I can hold this any better. I know some people recommend using like a reciprocating saw, and I just didn't feel like I could do that with one hand, or I feel like I couldn't do that with, I couldn't do that with, with one hand on the tool and one hand on the meat to hold it. So I figured this approach would be a little easier. It's not that easy, but again, I've never done this before, so hopefully the next go around will be a little easier once I kind of get my motion correct. I also don't want to cut my cutting board either, so let's see. Yeah, this is very difficult to hold. All right, I think I am through the bone. I don't know how these steaks are gonna turn out after I went through all that sawing. I will need to kind of clean up where the bone is actually cut. There might be some little fragments, but let's see. All this paper towel sticking to me. I'll have to just wash this, I guess, on the sink. All right, I mean, this was an end piece, so it wasn't perfectly straight to begin with. So we'll put that to the side. All right, so let's try my second attempt. Cut this little piece right here. All right. Let's see if I can saw through this bone. This would be probably a little easier if I had another pair of hands kind of helping me to hold this down. I want to be careful when I pull back that I'm not going to cut my hand. So I'm just trying to go slow. The struggle is real, y'all. All right, let me try this. See if I can hold this differently. There we go. All right. The most challenging part is really just trying to figure out how to hold this in place. Okay, this is, let me see, what if I do, okay, this works. Gotta try to keep this meat separated so that I'm not cutting the meat. See if I can hold this a little better. All right, there we go. All right, so I think the key is definitely having better grip. These saturated paper towels are no longer cutting it for me. Cutting it, get it? All right, let me get back to my fillet knife. I know this looks really messy, and it kind of is. I mean, obviously, if you're a professional meat cutter, you're looking at this, having a nice big laugh. But you know what? For 95 cents a pound and cut my own steaks to whatever thickness I want, I like that. This one is going to be tricky because the bone is kind of on the edge, so I don't know how well that's going to cut. And there's this flap right here, so it's kind of barely hanging on. So I might actually I'm going to trim this and make this into a little small pork steak. This will be for the wife, and this one will be for daddy. Make this one a small one also. Go ahead and square this off. And I'm gonna have to wash all this napkin off the steak. All right, so here, again, it's gonna be difficult to, I mean, it's basically here on the edge. Let's see if I can just kind of get around it. Okay. These will be some more little small steaks. Kind of give them a little bit more shape. I mean, honestly, these right here are perfect for my wife. She particularly doesn't care for very fatty meats, and so a smaller portion is probably what she would prefer. So, all right, so now with this remaining piece, there's no more bone left, so I can just use the knife to finish cutting this. And I'm gonna go ahead and try. You can see this knife here, it's only about a 6-inch knife. I'm gonna try using my brisket slicer and see how well that does. Again, we wanna try to do about 1.25 inches, so we'll say like that. Probably a little bigger. I'm finding that when you put your hand on top, it does seem to work better. All right, that's a good looking steak, not gonna lie. And let's just do that again. Try to keep this line straight. All right. Okay. Well, I still have on my fingers, so I'm thankful for that. It definitely wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. I mean, I really wasn't sure. Cutting with the meat saw on the, wet, slimy piece of meat, it's not the easiest. I could see how having an actual power tool would make it a lot easier, but again, by myself, I wanted to be able to do this without having to have an extra set of hands. All right, so I'm gonna have, I guess probably 5 like really large steaks, and then another 4 smaller steaks. I mean, for $8, honestly, this is a bargain. I mean, imagine having a barbecue, inviting people over, and offering them a big, thick steak like this, and it's only going to cost you $1 per steak. I mean, you can't beat that, especially with the prices of beef right now. All right, well, there you have it. We have 9 delicious 1.25-inch thick pork steaks, all for under $8. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Look forward to sharing my next videos where I'll actually cook up a pork steak and also show you how I vacuum seal these for long-term storage in the freezer. Thanks for watching. See you next time, and don't forget to barbecue without the hype.